Hello and welcome to AWS On Air, a show where we talk about, well, all the fun service launches, features, and anything in between. My name is Darko, and today we're joined by wonderful Paul and Jeff. We're going to talk about this wonderful new service out there, that has something to do with IoT and cars. So I'm pretty much looking forward to hearing more on that. Before we get into the details of it, just to introduce ourselves, Shashank, tell us who you are, what do you do, and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey Darko, and hey everyone. I'm Shashank. I'm also a developer advocate at AWS, and I'm excited about today's session. Darko, do you like cars?
I appreciate cars. Let me put it that way.
You know what's better than just cars?
What?
Cars that talk to the cloud. Okay, suspense. So
cars with data. Yes.
Okay.
And to talk to us about cars with data, we have Paul and Jeff. Paul Sammut. Paul, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Paul Sammut. I'm an SDE, an embedded SDE with the AWS IoT Automotive group, and I've been working on the new service that we're showcasing to you today called AWS IoT FleetWise for about a year now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Jeff.
Hey, thank you, Darko. So my name's Jeff. I've been working with Paul and the team. I'm product manager for the service that we're working on, AWS IoT FleetWise. Been working on it for a couple years now, and excited to bring it to the world.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Paul and Jeff.
Yeah, welcome, Paul and Jeff.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
My name is Darko. I'm a developer advocate like Shashank as well. I'm based out of Berlin, Germany, but I'm now coming to you, almost live from my childhood bedroom. So this is all fun. So if you hear some dogs, they're my dogs. Okay. You, Paul, and Jeff kind of spoiled the name here, but you said IoT FleetWise. Is that the name? IoT FleetWise is the name of the thing. But yes, Paul or Jeff, tell us what are we launching today?
Awesome. Yeah, so we are launching today our brand new service called AWS IoT FleetWise. This is a new service we've been working on specifically geared towards automakers, connecting their vehicles to the cloud and extracting their data from vehicles at scale. That's kind of the whole premise of this.
So it gets the data out of a car and just pushes it to the cloud, right?
In a way, right? So that's an easy way to think about it. But the cars are increasingly complex. And I think what we saw is that as cars became more complex, most importantly, more autonomous, additional sensors were added. Things like cameras, things like LiDAR, things like radar. And all of these things do two things. A, they create a ton of data, but this data is also usually locked up in some sort of proprietary format. We wanted to be able to, one, extract and make sense of that data in a secure way for our automaker customers. So not necessarily like opening up the car and giving all of this data to anybody. So it's still very secure. And we wanted to be able to extract it at scale. So a big thing that we saw was that these fleets are huge, worldwide. And the only way that you can really advance these sensors and advance the technologies behind them is to learn how they're operating in the field. You saw some companies do this pretty famously, like Tesla is a great example of this, right? They do a great job at this. And we wanted to be able to bring some of that technology to other automakers without investing in all that on-prem technology. So that's what we're working on.
So basically it enables the customers, the people who are actually going to be working with this data to actually get that data from a car into the cloud in a very, simple way, let's call it that way, right? But
exactly.
Okay, we'll get into the data in a bit more. What is it and all that stuff?
Of course.
I have a 25-year-old Zastava car here. It doesn't have any data on it, so I don't think this is for me. But so what kind of problems? Like, of course, getting the data can be complicated. But what kind of problems for our customers does this IoT FleetWise solve?
Yeah, so we do two main things. The first thing we do is we create this virtual vehicle model in the cloud. And what this is, it's basically a virtual representation of your vehicle with all of the different attributes of that vehicle, but most importantly, the sensors and the descriptions of those sensors. So by doing this, what you're doing is you're telling us how to read those sensors on the car, and we're able to now create these things called campaigns. And Paul will go into those in a little bit in our demo. But essentially, you're able to now tell us what to collect from the car, all from the cloud. We then manage and send those instructions to the car. We have an on-vehicle agent that we have. Right now, that on-vehicle agent is built to be a couple of things. First of all, lightweight, but also flexible. So we give the code to our customers for that. They're able to expand, flex it, manipulate it, do whatever they need to do to add and deploy it to their hardware. Most importantly, are most commonly deployed to something called the Automotive Gateway. Think of that as like the centralized gateway of the vehicle, almost like a router of the vehicle, where all of the sensors kind of interconnect to that gateway. That's where we want to live. And the reason for that is that has access to basically all of the data on the car. And we're able to have the most impact there. From there, we send that data to the cloud using some of the cloud technologies that we've built as AWS IoT over the years, IoT Core being one of those technologies that we can use, or whatever the automaker or customer may want to use, and bring it back into the cloud. Most importantly, though, that data also does go back into the customer's account. So we do not own or we do not have any sort of manipulation over that data. So we enrich it and we decode it for you. So it's no longer CAN, and we'll show you what raw CAN looks like, for instance. It is human readable now. But once we deploy it, once we write it to a customer's database, it's theirs. And our hands are off. So that's one of the things that customers have increasingly told us. And from the beginning, we're saying, you know what, we want this data, but we don't want anybody else to see it. We want to make sure it's secure. Our customers' privacy is paramount to us. And that's one of the things that we baked in from day zero on this product, is that it's always the automakers, it's always the customers. We as AWS put it into their account, and then we are hands off. And that's one of the key kind of values of this service.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Jeff, Darko mentioned that he has a 25-year-old car, and cars from years ago, you could always extract data. But I think what's so important is that the amount of data that's coming out of today's cars is phenomenally large, right? I mean, you could manage it maybe in the past with one of those readers from the car, but it's so large now. And when you talk about a fleet, it's I can't even imagine, right? Exponentially large. How are customers actually doing this before this service that you're going to talk about, right? How are they managing this in the past?
Yeah, there were a couple of ways that we saw it. So for things like diagnostics, they would have engine control lights. So check engine lights is the most common one. That'd be when you're driving and you see that little light flash up. You don't know why.
The one which glows the most, right?
What happened, right? And you bring it to the dealer, they plug in their diagnostics machine, and they're able to reread, okay, this code or this error was happened for this reason. But the problem is that you're reading that data after the fact. And you're hoping you collected the right amount of data and then stored it somewhere on the car. There's very basic information with that, right? However, when we have this service now, we're able to detect when something happens like that on the car and then collect all the information in near real time right then. So instead of the customer telling an automaker or telling you, hey, I had a problem with my car, you, the automaker, now know that there was a problem or something happened with that vehicle before the customer does even. So it's no longer the customer is your canary, so to speak. You're now in control of this, and you're giving your customer a better experience. That's the key. The other thing that we saw, though, Shashank, with some of this AV data, so autonomous vehicle data, some of these cameras and things like that, automakers and suppliers would create these test fleets. So they would have, and you've probably seen them, I've seen them in my neighborhood in Seattle, with these big arrays on top of their car collecting all of this data, right? So these are dedicated test fleets that then go back to some on-prem, usually data warehouse where they physically upload. They physically take these drives out and then bring them into either hopefully into the cloud, but usually they bring them into some on-prem database where you're now responsible for storing and maintaining all of that data. Just because the sheer amount these vehicles create is so hard to transmit cellularly.
But so just a question here. When we talk about getting the data out of a car, is this like a physical device? I mean, like, can I connect it to any car out there? Or does this car have to be smart and has the ability to run Linux or something? I don't know. Like, how does this actually practically work?
So our Edge agent and Paul and team have worked diligently on our Edge agent to be able to make it as flexible as possible. So right now, it can run on basically any new vehicle. So we're targeting new vehicles for this, right? It's not necessarily something that you could go and put in your 24-year-old car, Darko, mainly because your vehicle doesn't generate data. But most importantly, we're targeting those new vehicles. And the reason for that is we see new vehicles as kind of the place that these new sensors are becoming more and more commonplace. So this wasn't as big of a problem back then.
Right, makes sense. New vehicles produce a lot of data. You want to do something out of that data. Speaking of doing something, Paul mentioned he was going to do a demo. So I suggest we kind of flip into actually seeing how this works, seeing it from a practical sense, and then we can kind of chit-chat about it. So,
absolutely.
Paul, I'm going to
Sure.
bring up your screen here. So, Paul, tell us, what are you going to show us before you show us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what we're going to show you guys now is we're going to run through an end-to-end flow over of a couple of use cases that are going to be very common. So we're going to run through the initial setup, right? Like, because first you have to kind of define the vehicle, you have to figure some things out about it, and define that in the cloud, and then we'll show you the power that FleetWise will give you
Right.
in being able to create this campaign, right? That defines two things: the what and the when. What data to collect it, and when to collect it. Then we're going to see it being transferred over to our simulated vehicle here, in which we actually have hardware that's a vehicle gateway, where we have the vehicle agent running on that hardware. And then on that hardware, we're actually playing back a drive that we recorded here in Las Vegas, where
Okay.
it like this thing actually thinks it's driving right now.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
we'll see
wow.
that data go back to the time stream.
Obeying the law, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Paul
Yeah.
actually, the thing behind Paul, I'm not sure how visible that is, but the thing behind Paul is an actual hardware kit that simulates a car, which is just wonderful. And that hardware kit is shipping all of the data from this virtual drive into the cloud. So,
Yeah.
good.
So I have a question, Paul and Jeff.
Mhm.
Campaign means something very specific in your use case, right? Could you say a couple of sentences about what you mean by a campaign?
Sure. So a campaign is a collection of what signals to collect and when to collect it. It's a
Okay.
document. It's a JSON document. Well, I'll actually show you, and hopefully it'll be
Perfect.
much clearer when I show you.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I'll take it away here. So let's start with step one that a customer will need to do. So say say you're an OEM, and you want to create a virtual definition of your vehicle. And what
Okay.
that means is you're going to go into our service, and you're going to create a catalog of signals that will be present in that vehicle. And the reason you need to do this is because you need to know what signals you want to pick, right? When you create that campaign. So you need to know that, hey, this vehicle has an oil pressure sensor, and here's what that is. And this will give the customer the flexibility to do this once, and then roll out new models that use either subsets of these catalogs or add new signals later on down the road. So this virtual representation, is kind of like a powerful feature of our service.
Got it. And Paul, if you create new vehicles, you can reuse some of those, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can create what we call model manifests, which are a subset of your entire signal catalog. And you'd have a model manifest for every model vehicle that you have. And this scales as you add new models later down the road.
Excellent. So
Yeah.
if you're a vehicle manufacturer, you can define these things these documents which define what kind of sensors and data you're getting from a car. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And we use an industry standard called VSS.
Okay.
So it hopefully won't be too painful for our customers to use, because it'll be something they're familiar with.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can move on to the next step, which is the campaigns that we talked about.
Okay.
So on the left, I have one of the two types of campaigns that we support. We support time-based collection campaigns, and we support event-based. So time-based collection campaigns can be as simple as say, hey, collect the outside air temperature and the vehicle odometer every 10 seconds. Okay, so
Interesting. Yeah.
here that is, right? And on the right, we have a more complex campaign that's event-based. So here we have an expression that the user can set, and it's fully configurable. So they can say, hey, if the vehicle braking pressure goes over 7,000 pascals, then I want you to collect all the tire pressures, because maybe we have some issue that we're seeing, and we want to roll this collection campaign out to the fleet and then capture this data to be able to diagnose it and see, hey, is there an issue here?
Awesome. So I like this because it collects data just basically on a timer, which can collect just your random data. But if something specific happens, in this case, tire pressure, is this like brake pad pressure? I'm not sure what. If you open a door, if you roll down a window,
Exactly.
specific data may be collected at that time. So this is great for those kind of diagnostics.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's really powerful because you can set like very complex expressions that say, hey, if you're driving over 50 miles an hour uphill, right? Because you can sense your accelerometer, and then you press the brake, get the tire pressures, right? You can
Yeah.
zero down on just the exact data that you want. That's going to save you money in the end.
We try to think about this. Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Shashank.
Jeff. Yeah, I was saying what's interesting about this is you don't have to collect everything and do a post-processing afterwards, which is more data, more compute. You just do it on the vehicle as it's moving. So you actually collect less data, you collect relevant data, and you save on sort of compute tasks too, right?
And I think that's a particularly important piece, mainly because these vehicles are connected via cellular and via expensive communication methods, right? So you want to eliminate all that data you can at the edge as much as possible. We like to think of these kind of as almost like SQL queries, where you can make them as simple or as complex as you need based on your specific use case, all from the cloud, all remotely deployable to those vehicles.
Awesome. So now you create these documents. What happens next?
Great. Yeah. So we create these documents, and now we have to. These documents right now are living on my computer. So we need to then send them up. We need to make an API call that says, "Hey, create this campaign," and then we target that campaign to either a vehicle, a fleet of vehicles, a region, whatever you want. So that's the other really kind of big power is we're doing this with one vehicle, but think millions of vehicles here, right?
Yeah,
this
makes
scales
sense.
with your fleet, which is
Single line of code.
Right.
Yeah.
And the catalog is created on your AWS account. So you're creating this catalog on the AWS account, correct?
Exactly, on your account. So right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to send over the RFO event one we're calling, which is the event-based collection campaign. I'm going to hit enter, and then hopefully everything's going to work. Great. So it created the campaign. It's waiting for it to be approved. And now if we look over to the right, I'm actually just looking at the status, and it's saying, okay, it's created. It's going to go through some steps where it's going to go ready. And then hopefully it'll turn to healthy, which means the vehicle itself has it. Now the vehicle has it, and it's enacted this campaign. So let's also send over the other one that we have, which is that heartbeat. So now we call it a heartbeat because it operates on an interval. So it's like, hey, the heartbeat of the vehicle. So there we go. It got created, and now hopefully it'll go healthy. Awesome. It's still ready. But now I can take you guys into the physical world here, and I can show you the vehicle. So right now I'm actually SSH'd into the simulated vehicle.
Nice.
And we can peek into the CAN bus network traffic of the vehicle by running the simple command. And that's what's going on the vehicle. This is an actual drive. Right now you're looking at like
cool.
The engine revving, all these signals, right? So by now we'll actually have pressed on the brake, because in this simulated vehicle we press on the brake, and we'll have had these this data being sent up to the cloud. So let's go look at it. So
let's see.
Sorry there. Let's go to time stream.
Oh, so this data is being sent to TimeStream in this case, right? So okay, awesome. So while this is happening, maybe Jeff, you can answer us. Where does this data go? Like, is this data going to us or where?
That's an awesome question. So this data goes directly into a customer's account. So right now we have it going to a customer's TimeStream account. In the future, it could be things like S3 accounts, wherever the target that customer wants us to dive that data or to write that data to, we can write that data into.
Okay, so it belongs to a customer. Excellent.
Exactly.
Paul, before you continue, can you just zoom in a bit so we can see?
Of course.
See the stuff. Excellent. Okay, cool.
So right now I'm just running a SQL query on the table that we created, and I'm just saying, hey, give me all the data that you got from 15 minutes ago to now. I'll hit the run button, and we should now see a whole bunch of data, like actual physical data of the vehicle that we have. So I'm going to close this out over here and show you guys, like, hey, look at this. This is the brake pedal pressure, BP DAPS, and it's 7,200 PSI. Here's the vehicle's odometer in kilometers from the heartbeat campaign. And you can do whatever you want with this data now.
This is wonderful. Like, so now this is a simple, like, just it's all simulated, but you get this data. It's in TimeStream, but you can do whatever you want with that data. You can export it to BI solutions, to whatever.
Exactly.
The data nerd in me wants to look at anomalies and outliers, and I want to do all.
That's exactly right. You can unlock the power of AWS because now that data is in AWS. Use whatever tool. We have a whole service of tools for you.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Well, Paul, Jeff, thank you very
This was
much.
awesome.
I think this is a great service. If you're a car manufacturer, if you build automotive stuff, you want to get that data from a car, IoT FleetWise is a great way to do it.